A polêmica envolvendo uma brasileira detida pelo ICE ganha novos desdobramentos, com acusações e contestações que estão repercutindo nas redes sociais. Tem ainda o centro de detenção conhecido como Alligator Alcatraz é esvaziado na Flórida por causa da temporada de furacões. Na Califórnia, uma operação do ICE gera controvérsia após agentes terem se passado por funcionários de uma empresa de energia. Você vai ver também a decisão da Suprema Corte que amplia o poder do governo Trump. Portadores de green card poderão ser deportados. Em New York, a prévia democrata ganha força. E na Pensilvânia, Trump volta à campanha com foco na indústria e nos empregos americanos. Eu sou Amadeu Maia e este é o Agenda 47, que está no ar. Olá, hoje é quarta-feira, 24 de junho de 2026 e sejam todos bem-vindos ao Agenda 47, um jornal dedicado a acompanhar de perto as principais notícias e ações que envolvem o 47º presidente dos Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, e as políticas que ele aplica. Claro, destacando sempre os impactos diretos na vida dos imigrantes e também na política norte-americana. Estamos presentes em várias plataformas para que você fique sempre bem informado. Para todos os Estados Unidos e Canadá, você pode nos ver na SPT Television SIC Internacional e também no nosso stream SPT Plus, onde você pode acessar em qualquer lugar do mundo. Nas redes sociais estamos na Seabra Brazilian Television no YouTube e no Instagram. Mesmo nome, basta colocar lá, Seabra Brazilian Television. Informação de qualidade, credibilidade e conexão direta com a nossa comunidade, onde quer que você esteja. Ontem nós mostramos uma reportagem sobre uma brasileira que tinha sido detida pelo ICE, a Tailane. A situação envolvendo esta brasileira Tailane, que está detida pelo ICE, o Serviço de Imigração dos Estados Unidos, ela ganhou um novo capítulo. Joshua Michael Archer, marido de Tailane, contesta todas as informações que foram divulgadas em uma campanha de arrecadação, o GoFundMe, criada em nome dela na plataforma. Segundo Joshua, a narrativa apresentada na campanha não corresponde ao que teria ocorrido durante o relacionamento deste casal. Ele afirma que não abandonou a esposa e diz possuir vídeos, áudios e mensagens e documentos que, segundo sua versão, sustentam suas alegações. Joshua também afirma ter sofrido prejuízos financeiros durante o casamento e apresentou registros que, de acordo com ele, mostram uma realidade diferente da divulgada publicamente. Além das declarações do marido, outras pessoas também afirmam ter sido prejudicadas financeiramente por Tailane. Segundo esses relatos, documentos e mensagens foram encaminhadas à imprensa com informação relacionadas ao caso. A página de arrecadação do GoFundMe, mencionada na campanha, que inclusive mostramos no Agenda 47 ontem, nas publicações, lá no site não está mais disponível. Até o momento não houve uma manifestação pública dos advogados ou representantes legais de Tailane sobre as novas alegações do ex-marido. O caso segue em andamento e continua sendo acompanhado pelas autoridades competentes. Nós vamos agora, porque aqui a gente é o seguinte, a gente faz o jornalismo onde a gente mostra os dois lados. Vamos mostrar na íntegra as alegações do marido de Tailane agora no Agenda 47.
Hello, my name is Josh. I'm married to a Brazilian national who everyone is trying to assist on this GoFundMe. I am going to be reading a little bit here and there just so that I can stay organized with my thoughts because it's quite a bit. But from what I just recently learned about a week ago, my soon-to-be ex-wife, who's currently detained by ICE, she's in Louisiana, and is in the process of potentially being deported, which hopefully is the case. But I learned that she had a GoFundMe page that was created on her behalf in order to get her out. I don't want anyone to waste their time, energy, or money on something that they truly don't understand because she is not an innocent woman. And I want to make it clear, she made it seem as though I had abandoned her. I didn't abandon her. What ended up happening is that since she had been arrested on May 26th, myself, her now ex-best friend, her father, her mother, half sister, uncle, multiple friends, and even her ex-boyfriend's mother, who we spoke to for about an hour and 45 minutes about 2 weeks ago, who was a wonderful woman, explained exactly what this person did to them and to their family. And while she was incarcerated, I uncovered quite a bit of information that caused me to take the actions that I'm now taking. I am looking to divorce. I went to the courthouse yesterday, and that's in limbo as we speak. I'm in the middle of that. But this video is simply to share my side of the story and to encourage people to truly look at the facts, because this individual is not who you think she is. Don't be fooled. And I'm more than willing to disclose what I need to disclose. I don't want to destroy her life, but definitely don't want to defame my name or have you individuals, and I assume good people trying to help somebody, to donate your money. I promise you, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your money, just as I have been doing for approximately 10 to 11 months now. We met in June 18th last year, got married March 10th of this year, 2026. And she lied about every angle of her life, everything. And again, I'm going to read a little bit here and there, just to kind of keep my thoughts organized. But for example, some of the things, right? Some of the things that I came to discover, again, this is all since March 26th. For about the first 48 to 72 hours, I was doing everything in my power to gather money, looking to sell my car, looking to sell her car, looking to borrow money. I wiped out my savings, all in the name of saving this individual. For one, when we first met, she told me she was a lawyer, that she had gone to college in Brazil, had a doctorate degree, and that she was a lawyer for back in Brazil. She never went to school. She, since I met her, again, June 18th of last year, 2025, she's had 3 different run-ins with the law. The first and most important was one that she told me she got pulled over because she did not have a driver's license. Again, she's an immigrant. She was in the middle of getting a green card with my assistance by being married to me, a military veteran. But she lied, saying that she had gone through a traffic stop, and because she didn't have a license, she was arrested on paper and had what's called a promise to appear in court, a PTA. And the truth is, I discovered from the attorney that I actually introduced her to and that she was using. He's actually a friend of mine, and he explained to me after the fact, when I told her, hey, she got arrested on the 26th, she's with ICE, blah, blah, blah. He said, listen, I need you to tell you something, because the case that you think that she was arrested for on paper, you believe that she got that ticket and arrest because she was driving without a license. No, she was caught shoplifting from Macy's in the amount of about $376. Macy's in Miami. Something that she lied about, and I never knew. And I was helping her pay the attorney's fees. I was helping paying all these things. It was the one ticket I never saw. Her next 2 incidents I did see. She did get pulled over later again. This time she was driving and was caught without her license because she doesn't have one. And she was caught because she was at a red light and turned right on red, where it said you cannot turn right on red. That's why she got pulled over. She did receive a ticket. That case is currently still pending as we speak. And her most recent arrest was when she got arrested. She was pulled over by FHP, Florida Highway Patrol, and she was caught because there was an emergency vehicle that was on the side of the road. And when there's an emergency vehicle in the United States, you got to not pull over, but you scoot over one lane. She didn't do that. Florida Highway Patrol was behind her. They pulled her over. I saw she didn't have a license. They contacted CBP, Customs Border Patrol. They came and then they detained her. They arrested her. They took her to Dania Beach CBP station. She was there for about 4 days. She was then transferred to BTC, Broward Transitioning Center, and was there for probably about a week and a half, and since has moved to now she's in a detention center in Louisiana, and she has a final court hearing, a master court hearing coming up this July 1st, and she's looking to get out by saying, hey, I'm married, which she is. We are married on paper at this moment. I'm filing the divorce this week. But on paper, yes, we are married. But she's going to act as if we're in this happy marriage, that I wish to be with her, and that we've already started our CIS and immigration paperwork, which is true. We have started it just the week before she got arrested. But I have since withdrawn everything that I've come to learn about her. I will not be her husband. I will get divorced. I do not sponsor her. She's an absolute fraud, and she broke my heart. And I let her into my home with my family, my daughters. I married her, and I'm a military veteran. She knows that I receive benefits as well, and that if something were to ever happen to me, she would also get paid for the rest of her life. Not the full amount that I get paid, but a decent portion, which has me to believe that maybe I wouldn't be around if I would have stuck in this relationship much longer. She had people working with her in Brazil. She was sending gifts and whatnot to Brazil to her quote-unquote sister, not her sister, a random friend from school who's been a very sneaky and shady individual who now magically popped out of nowhere, has been contacting me. I never knew about this person until Taleni got arrested. Also, since Taleni's been detained, she had asked me to go to her ex-best friend's house to look, because most of her things were at her friend's house. I have a one-bedroom apartment. I don't have a lot of space. Her best friend's kind enough, or ex-best friend was kind enough to allow her to keep nearly 90% of her shit at her house. So, since she's been detained, she said, hey, listen, go into this tote. There's baby clothes, again, a baby she never had. And she said, if you look under the baby clothes, there's going to be a gold bracelet. And she wasn't lying. I did get it appraised. And it was 22 karat gold, a Turkish bracelet, 22 karat gold that was valued at $1,100, $1,100. Now, why would she have kept that hidden under baby clothes for a baby she never had at her best friend's house? Why did she keep that separate, you know? Also, that same best friend explained to me that she allowed my ex to use her credit card for about for 1 month. And within that month, she spent $3,000 on her Victoria's Secret credit card. It's not only a Victoria's Secret credit card that you only use at the store. It was just the front of it was Victoria's Secret. And it was a normal credit card you could use anywhere. She spent $3,000 and never repaid her. She also, she had us all believing that she lost a baby. She would always tell me, oh, my periods are very heavy. I feel very weak. I'm this, I'm that, the other. She would come into the bathroom, either show me the toilet, like, oh my God, look how much I'm bleeding, or while she's in the shower, like, oh, look, I just dropped this blood clot. Well, I just found in my own apartment, in a little tote that she had, at the bottom, it has cardboard to kind of keep it solid so it doesn't collapse. I don't know why. We had already looked inside. She had us all believing that she lost a baby. She would always tell me, oh, my periods are very heavy. I feel very weak. I'm this, I'm that, the other. She would come into the bathroom, either show me the toilet, like, oh my God, look how much I'm bleeding, or while she's in the shower, like, oh, look, I just dropped this blood clot. Well, I just found in my own apartment, in a little tote that she had, at the bottom, it has cardboard to kind of keep it solid so it doesn't collapse. I don't know why. We had already looked inside the tote, but I decided to look underneath for whatever reason. And underneath were these two red, clear tablets with red fluid. The kind of thing that you would buy at a Halloween store if you want to, like, be Dracula. You put it in your mouth, you bite it, and it leaks fake blood. And that's what was hidden underneath the cardboard of this tote. She was, again, never had a baby, never was sick. She would tell me that she had an iron deficiency. I spent on cancer and was sick back in Brazil. Does not have cancer, confirmed by himself. And as a matter of fact, when she came here on December 18th of 2022, while she was here, she was running low on money and called her dad and said that she was sick. And he sent her some money so that she could survive here in the United States. So no, her father does not have cancer. He is not ill. And I can prove that as well. The paralegal who's been doing our customs and our U.S. CIS immigration paperwork, he's also the guy that inspired this whole GoFundMe, is a fraud, an absolute fraud. Him and his assistant, who for right now I'm going to leave their name out, but they're an absolute fraud. This guy's been arrested multiple times for cocaine, for driving under the influence, and for a few other things. And he's an absolute fraud. So, yeah.
E deixamos aqui aberto a nossa redação e o nosso jornal Agenda 47 para contestações da defesa da brasileira Tayane. Se quiser entrar em contato, entre em contato com a gente pelas redes sociais ou então pelo telefone 973-344-8888 e você terá o mesmo tempo de resposta para este caso. As autoridades de imigração dos Estados Unidos transferiram todos os imigrantes que estavam detidos no centro conhecido como Alligator Alcatraz, localizado nos Everglades, na Flórida. A medida foi tomada por causa do início da temporada de furacões, que aumenta o risco para quem está alojado na estrutura temporária. Segundo o Serviço de Imigração e Controle de Aduanas, o ICE, a remoção dos detidos ocorreu em parceria com o governo da Flórida para garantir a segurança dos imigrantes. No entanto, as autoridades não informaram para quais unidades essas pessoas foram transferidas. A decisão também aumentou as especulações sobre um possível fechamento definitivo da instalação. O governo Ron DeSantis declarou que o centro nunca foi planejado para funcionar permanentemente e que teria cumprido seu papel dentro da política imigratória do estado. Construído em uma área isolada dos Everglades para ampliar a capacidade de detenção de imigrantes, o local chegou a abrigar cerca de 1.400 pessoas. Até o momento, o governo federal afirma que o futuro da unidade continua sendo avaliado. Uma operação do Serviço de Imigração dos Estados Unidos, o ICE, está gerando forte repercussão na Califórnia. Segundo imagens divulgadas por emissoras locais, agentes federais teriam se passado por funcionários de uma companhia elétrica para atrair um imigrante para fora da sua residência. Vestido com coletes de trabalhadores de serviços públicos, eles alegaram que seria necessário mover um veículo por causa de uma suposta intervenção em um poste de energia. Assim que o morador saiu de casa, foi imediatamente detido pelos agentes do ICE. O vídeo da ação viralizou nas redes sociais e levantou questionamentos de ativistas e organizações de direitos civis sobre a legalidade e a transparência desse tipo de abordagem. O Departamento de Segurança Interna dos Estados Unidos afirmou que o alvo da operação eram imigrantes em situação irregular. O caso reacendeu o debate sobre as estratégias utilizadas nas operações imigratórias em todos os Estados Unidos. E a Suprema Corte dos Estados Unidos decidiu por 6 votos a 3 ampliar a autoridade do governo federal em casos envolvendo residentes permanentes legais, os chamados portadores de green card. A decisão ocorreu no caso do imigrante Mook Shui Lau, que foi colocado em liberdade condicional imigratória ao retornar de uma viagem internacional após ser acusado de um crime de falsificação. Com a nova interpretação, agentes de imigração poderão considerar um residente permanente como solicitante de admissão ao retornar ao país, mesmo sem apresentar naquele momento provas conclusivas do crime investigado. A medida pode facilitar a abertura de processo de deportação em determinadas situações. A decisão gerou debate entre os magistrados. A juíza Catherine Brown Jackson, em voto divergente, afirmou que a medida concede ao governo um poder muito amplo e pode deixar imigrantes em uma espécie de limbo imigratório. Já a maioria da corte entendeu que a legislação não exige provas definitivas que as autoridades adotem esse procedimento na fronteira. O julgamento acontece em meio a uma série de casos imigratórios analisados pela Suprema Corte e pode impactar o futuro de processos envolvendo residentes permanentes que enfrentam acusações criminais nos Estados Unidos.
The Senate passed a war powers resolution on Tuesday directing President Donald Trump to halt U.S. military action against Iran. It's the latest rebuke of the Republican president from an increasingly restive Congress. The Senate voted 50-48 in favor of the resolution, which passed the House of Representatives earlier this month. It was the first time both chambers of Congress had passed a resolution directing a president to remove U.S. armed forces from hostilities, as spelled out in the War Powers Resolution of 1973, more commonly known as the War Powers Act. Tuesday's rebuke reflected growing concern even among some of Trump's Republicans about the unpopular conflict that began on February 28th. The Senate vote was nearly along party lines, with 4 Republicans joining all but 1 Democrat in favor. 2 Republican senators did not vote. The leader of the Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, was one of the supporters of the measure.
Madam President, for years, Trump promised to put maximum pressure on Iran but he ended up delivering maximum confusion, maximum chaos, maximum cost to the American people with his disastrous war. Every second this war continues, the costs to the American people go up.
While likely to remain largely symbolic, the votes were a clear setback for Trump, who until recently enjoyed nearly full support from Republican members of Congress. Trump's Republicans hold slim majorities in both the Senate and House. The measure does not get sent to the White House for Trump's signature. However, the White House has insisted the legislation is not constitutional and thus not binding.
O prefeito de New York, Zohran Mamdani, entrou de vez na disputa política desta semana em New York City. Nesta terça-feira, ele participou de eventos de campanha ao lado dos candidatos progressistas Brad Lander e Lipa Sairitupak, incentivando os eleitores a comparecerem às urnas antes do fechamento da votação. Durante um evento em Lower Manhattan, Mamdani defendeu a agenda voltada para o custo de vida, moradia e apoio aos trabalhadores, afirmando que os candidatos apoiados por ele podem ajudar a tornar New York mais acessível para a população. O prefeito também destacou a importância da participação popular nas eleições primárias do Partido Democrata. A presença de Mamdani reforça sua crescente influência dentro da ala progressista do partido. Analistas políticos apontam que o prefeito busca fortalecer um grupo de aliados que compartilham propostas de justiça social e redução das desigualdades econômicas na cidade.
You remember the words of freedom from want, freedom from fear, freedom of worship. You remember so much of this that used to be at the central, really part of what it was to be a Democrat. It's time to bring some of those notions back so that working people can look at this party, see themselves, see their struggles, see their focuses. All of the candidates here have been doing that work, and I'm so excited to be here with congressional candidate Brad Lander, who is running for Congress here in New York 10, as well as a number of other candidates, and standing together because this is a moment where New Yorkers have an opportunity to vote for who would be a partner in someone fulfilling the affordability agenda. We know.
As eleições norte-americanas são somente na segunda terça-feira de novembro, mas já está esquentando o cenário político nos Estados Unidos. Só para vocês terem ideia, o presidente dos Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, retomou sua agenda de campanha com uma visita à Pensilvânia, um dos estados mais disputados do país. Em uma fábrica da Mack Trucks, Trump reforçou sua promessa de fortalecer a indústria americana e recuperar empregos no chamado Cinturão da Ferrugem, região historicamente ligada à produção industrial. Durante o discurso, o presidente afirmou que sua política econômica ajudou a proteger fábricas e trabalhadores da concorrência estrangeira. No entanto, o cenário econômico anda ainda apresentando muitos desafios para o presidente Trump. Dados recentes mostram perdas de emprego no setor industrial desde 2025 e queda na produção de caminhões nos Estados Unidos. A visita faz parte da estratégia republicana para as eleições legislativas de novembro, como eu falei, que vão definir o controle do Congresso americano, incluindo a Casa dos Representantes e o Senado. A Pensilvânia é considerada um dos estados chaves desta corrida eleitoral de meio mandato.
Who here voted for Trump?
U.S. President Donald Trump returned to the campaign trail on Tuesday, making a stop in the key battleground state of Pennsylvania. Speaking at a truck assembly plant, Trump shifted focus from foreign policy to jobs, highlighting his push to rebuild U.S. industry and win over factory workers, a core part of his political base.
For decades, the workers of this Commonwealth watched globalist politicians let other countries rip you off and close your factories, rob your jobs, take them away to foreign lands. And then I came along. We stopped it very quickly.
But his economic message faces challenges. A nearly 4-month war involving Iran has driven up consumer prices at the fastest pace in 3 years, complicating his argument. The manufacturing outlook is also mixed. Since returning to office in January 2025, the U.S. has lost tens of thousands of factory jobs, including in the auto sector. That's according to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, though recent figures suggest some stabilization. Production of medium and heavy-duty vehicles, such as those made at the factory where Trump spoke, has been trending down. Federal Reserve data show U.S. truck makers hit their lowest output in more than 4 years. The visit underscores Trump's strategy of turning the November midterms into a referendum on his leadership, despite low approval ratings, as Republicans fight to retain control of Congress.
É isso aí, agora vamos conferir o que é destaque na capa dos nossos jornais comunitários, das nossas regiões aqui, onde tem uma influência muito grande dos imigrantes brasileiros e portugueses, como o caso aqui de Massachusetts. E vamos trazer aqui o Brazilian Times, que traz um destaque desse brasileiro, que inclusive esse brasileiro, gente, ele cometeu um assassinato e olha só a notícia que o Brazilian Times está trazendo. O brasileiro acusado de duplo homicídio lá em Fall River, brutal do duplo homicídio, pode pegar prisão perpétua. Ele é um influencer e teria, segundo as acusações, matado 2 pessoas. Aí tem aqui um brasileiro que veio de Fusca, gente. Ele veio de Fusca, gremista, cruza as Américas de Fusca para acompanhar a seleção brasileira na Copa do Mundo. Ele saiu lá do Rio Grande do Sul, ó, e veio no Fuquinha, olha o Fuquinha azul aí, olha aí. O cabo é corajoso, viu? Porque um Fusca não é confortável e andar tudo isso, né, gente? Olha só. Brasileiro de apenas 14 anos se destaca em competição internacional de ciência no Texas. Só revelações aí de brasileiros. E aqui tem outra. Aos 11 anos, brasileira se prepara para representar o Brasil em torneio de jiu-jitsu. A gente sabe que o Brasil é aí um dos polos mais importantes do jiu-jitsu, foi criado lá pela família Gracie e está cada vez crescendo mais pelo mundo. Projeto de lei da Califórnia pode permitir que imigrantes processem agentes do ICE por violações constitucionais. Por exemplo, você foi preso e achou que sua prisão foi indevida, você pode processar o ICE lá na Califórnia. Isso é um projeto de lei que vai, se aprovado, vai permitir essa ação. Receita Federal faz alerta a brasileiros nos Estados Unidos sobre o envio irregular de caixas para o Brasil. Tem muita gente indo embora por conta das questões imigratórias e eles contratam o container, contratam essas empresas para levar caixa. A Receita Federal está de olho nisso, gente. Então, é bom procurar essas reportagens e ficar por dentro para você não ter um prejuízo de suas coisas quando estiver levando para Portugal ou para o Brasil, ser retido aí pela Receita Federal, principalmente porque essa notícia é da Receita Federal do Brasil, tá bom? Esse Brazilian Times você pode lê-lo fisicamente em qualquer segmento, em qualquer comércio brasileiro aí espalhado nos Estados Unidos, tá bom? Lembrando que logo mais às 6 horas tem Jogo do Brasil, inclusive, ó, vim com a gravatinha aqui para dar sorte, verde e amarelo. 6 horas tem Jogo do Brasil, mas às 7 a gente não falha, porque tem Brasil News e a gente vai trazer os bastidores dessa Copa, os bastidores desse jogo. Então, se tiver ali meio que no intervalo, cola lá no Brasil News, tá bom? 7 horas da noite, conto com sua audiência. E não nos deixes de seguir no nosso YouTube e também no nosso Instagram, Seaba Brazilian Television. O seu like e seu follow é muito importante pra gente. Bye, bye.